So let's focus on the coach for a moment, because obviously you've had a lot of experiences working with coaches. My guess in professional sport, that's a big part of the team. But if you think about it in terms of the fitness space, look at the fitness industry. There's kind of a lot of places where you go for fitness where they don't have any coaches. You just kind of go in and do it on your own, and then places like you have where there's a lot of coaching one-on-one and groups. What is a couple of things in how should someone who's trying to get the results, what should they look for in a coach? Because I suppose when you talk about these teams and this energy, obviously there were certain people who were very good at it. Mm-hmm. But then on the other side, if you're that coach, how should you approach the responsibility of that role? Is it a case of you just need to understand about how to do the exercises and whatever, or is being a good coach that's going to actually get people to do amazing things a lot more than just understanding the technical parts of it? So I'm trying to, there's a lot to sort of unpack there, but the two sides, someone who's looking for one and then someone who's thinking of being one.
And like you said, this is a two-part question. It's interesting. I think I say this a lot. Like when I first came into the industry, it was really about, I think when we looked at like training in general, it was really about, you got to learn the right form or you're going to get hurt. And that stuff is it's still important. But I think that nowadays we have more information available to us than we've ever had, right? And if I could write down a group of exercises and say, hey, Matt, go do these, you could do them. You don't hire a coach for that anymore, I don't think. I think when I look at it is, can I push you to places that you wouldn't go on your own? I think that's a yes. That's what you do with athletes. I think that's the different. I remember just looking at kind of the pandemic and COVID and people being so nervous because all of these people are entering the space. But I just think there's no substitute for a great coach. I mean, great coaching, when we talked about it, I think the trust level is huge. I think that's what it is. You hire a coach because it's somebody you can trust. They might have all the certifications up the wazoo. They might have, everything, but at the end of the day, it's just something about them and you that doesn't click. And for me, I've always been open to that. I think that people should work with people that, really can push them in a way that's constructive and positive and productive. But if it's not really working, athlete or so on, I think that you have to find somebody that can take you there. I remember, this is a conversation I had with one of the guys that I knew here earlier today before we were setting up. And it's even with athletes, you might get to a certain point, and you see this with fighters, where I can no longer take you where you want to go. My level of knowledge and expertise has hit its cap. And I can no longer take you where you need to go. And that's okay. That's got to be okay. Because for us, when we look at in regular coaching, if we're working with everyday athletes, you might hit a certain point where if I'm not a registered dietitian, and you might have something that's just completely that you need somebody, my level of knowledge has terminated at that point. Mm-hmm. And you need to find somebody, I need to help you find the right situation at that point. Doesn't mean that the relationship has to not coexist. So I think that, and I'm kind of going far afield, but I think that if you're looking for a coach, I think that's what, first and foremost, you want somebody that's going to help you get to where you're going in a more efficient manner than you would get there yourself. So when I look at a lot of the tech, a lot of it's cool, and I think that there is a lot of information. But at the end, I think that in every journey, you get to a point where you need, I always lean on the one quote where it says, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. And that's happened for me in my whole entire life. And I really think that if you're open to that, I think that that happens for everybody, and no matter what walk of life. For me, it's been throughout this industry, I've always hit a space where at some point, the level of where I can go on my own has terminated, and I've had somebody to help you kind of go a little bit further. And then there's somebody who can help you with this situation if you're open and available to it. Mm. And I think that that's where the other side comes in from the client and athlete side, is I have to really be open to that. And I think that they call it, we call that the trans-theoretical model of behavior change, right? Where you talk about the stages of change and you have a person who's just not at the stage where they really want to do anything. then it's a wash. You could be, Vince Lombardi. You're not going to help that person. I always love to watch documentaries about great coaches because it's always, I think that you never take on all the knowledge of something, but wherever you are in life, there's always one little nugget in something that might speak to where you are. And for him, when working with the athletes, I don't know how familiar you are with the NCAA basketball tournament, but one of the traditions is when they would win a national championship, they cut the nets down.
Right. Okay.
So he would have one practice every year where they wouldn't do any basketball. They would just come in and cut the nets down. And they would pretend like that they won a national championship and do all these things. So during that whole run where they were winning, they were down in every single game. But somehow some belief, it's just we've been here before. So in one, there's a 30 for 30. I always tell everybody it's worth the hour to watch it. But it's just one thing that resonates with me. And they were up in one game, and then one of the guys that was one of the main players, he says, we got into the familiar place where we were down, and all of a sudden that snapped them right back to where they are because it's the familiar place of we've been here before. Now we can win this,
Right.
And I think that, not to go too far afield, I think with coaching, it's a style thing, but from an athlete-client standpoint, they have to be open to that. And then when those two things match up, you can make magic, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's really where you look at that.
Yeah, it's definitely something it's definitely a unique skill, and I suppose it's something that you have to work on a lot. But I also heard an interview with you where you said something around like kids, the kids being coachable or uncoachable, and kind of whether they're unemployable, which I guess you could look at other ways as well. But I suppose, which I didn't realize, is you have to, as a person, be coachable. Even though you could have a great coach, if you're not open to that, then you're not going to get anywhere, I guess.
No, the funny thing is I can't remember what interview that's from, but you're like the third person that said that. So I'm like thinking of it, but
I think it was something like if you're uncoachable, you're unemployable.
Yeah. Uncoachable kids become unemployable adults.
Yeah.
And that, for me, in our place, that's the one thing I think that if you said, what do we do? I always tell people, hey, you can take all the Goliaths you want. It's like a Bible thing. I'm a faith guy. So you can take all the Goliaths, I'll take all the Davids. I'll take all the kids that you said were too slow. I'll take all the kids that you said were too short, all the kids that you said were too fat. And for me, because it's a mindset thing, I love underdogs. For me, I feel like I'm an underdog. I came from a place where nobody was drafted and stuff like that. The day I told my mom I was getting drafted, she didn't know what draft meant. She's like, draft. She's like, make sure you take out the garbage after y'all get done drafting. So it was like something that was like not something that we would go through every day. It was unique. But when I go back to that quote, it's really a mindset thing, and it's not a defeatist attitude that, you're going to have a small percentage that go on to be professional athletes. But it's a way that you do things. And I think that when I look at it, I always went through my career. I didn't get to play, the 20 years in the big leagues that some people got. But I have zero regret because I feel like if I try to train kids to understand that if I shoot every missile at the aircraft carrier and it don't go down, I gave you everything I got, and at the end I could live with the result, whatever that may be. So I get my most joy from them. So a lot of times on social media, you won't see some of the, the college guys or things like that. I like to show the young kids because that's their development, right? You can watch them grow, you can watch them get different, but you'll also watch them grow here because now they handle defeat different. They handle success different. It's not always the way you handle defeat, right? A lot of times it's the way that you handle success. And I remember having a parent come in, great gentleman, and I've trained his son for years since he was maybe 10. And I remember him coming and saying, well, they have a showcase for kids and he's going to run and do stuff like that. And I want to get him ready for that. And I said, you know what? Maybe the worst thing is not that he goes and he doesn't do well. I said, maybe the worst thing is that he goes and he's the number one guy, because then how does that impact you? Because does it change the way that you train, how hard you work when you come in? So sometimes it's better that I'm a former athlete. I don't do any baseball training. That's by intention. I don't do any technically specific stuff. for a reason, because I want any youth athlete, high school, college, when they come and hit the doors of the lab where I'm at, if I'm yelling at you, it's not because you didn't get a hit. It's not because you didn't get the bunt down. It's not because you didn't, score the touchdown. It's not because of anything. It's because of, it's what genuinely your effort, and it's what you need in that moment. I feel you need in that moment to help you reach the next level, to be the teacher that you need in that moment. I always wanted it to be a love-based place and an organic place where they could come. Is if, we just talked about that coaching-wise and that why. If you ever needed to tell somebody something that you felt like you couldn't tell anybody else in the world, I want them to hit the door and feel like that's the place where they could tell people. You feel safe when you walk through the doors. And that's always been the reasoning for everything. So we don't, I don't ever want kids that, go about and behave in a way that, is embarrassing to them in their upbringing. So when we look at uncoachable, I want, kids that you feel like are coachable. They take, responsibility for the mistakes, but they're genuinely giving you everything that they have. And if it's not there, it's because it's not there in that moment. But we're going to continuously try to get better, and we do that together. And that's really what I mean by that quote. It's really one of those things, and that's why I say I'll take all the Davids, because it's just like, hey, because there's some greatness there, and I want to be the one that uncovers it for them or helps them get to it. But that's kind of where that comes from.